Okay, 20.3, applying a zero product property to solve equations. Okay, what in the world's the zero product property? This is real easy. This goes back to 20.2 basically. So all we're going to do here is basically solve equations when they are factored. So here's the factored form. We're just trying to find the zeros, and we've already done this in the previous lesson. You can look at the examples here, but I'm going to skip to your turn. So right here it asks, find the zeros of each function. What makes that 0? X equals 10. What makes that 0? X equals 6. Done. Same thing we had before. What's the 7 do? The 7's nothing. It cannot be a factor. Why? Because it does not have a variable. This would be a factor, which means it has a 0, so X is 13. Same thing here. X would be negative 12. It's what makes it 0. So here's one where it says solve using the distributive property. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, now these look a little different. The reason is because each factor has something being multiplied to it. The good thing is if you look at the factor, it's the same exact factor. So real quickly over here to the side, I'm going to write, what if I had something like this? 7 times 6 plus 3 times 6. Now obviously you can multiply each, but both of these are being multiplied by 6. So what I can do is take that 6 out and then group together the 7 and the 3. So what do I end up with? I end up with 6 times 10, which is 60. Now, let's make sure that would have worked if I'd gone the other way. So let's say, for instance, instead of grouping it all together like that, let's say I just multiplied it. So what's 7 times 6? 42. What's 3 times 6? 18. Add that together, 60. So because it has what is known as a common factor here, we can factor that out. Now that's going to be critical because over here in this problem, both of these have this x minus 11. So what I'm going to do is pull that common factor out, and then I'm going to group together what was being multiplied times that, which was the 7x minus 2. Now once I do that, now I can look and see what my zeros are. So what's the 0 here? X equals 11. What's the 0 here? Okay, that one's a little bit more complicated just because this has a coefficient. So there are a couple ways you can do this. You can go back and work it as an equation, set it equal to 0, add 2, 7x equals 2, then divide by 7. And if you do that, you get x is 2 over 7. Now if you did this on the calculator, you would get a decimal. Another way to do this is just to think, okay, 7x minus 2, do the opposite of both of these, because when you solve, you always do the opposite. What's the opposite of subtract 2? Add 2. What's the opposite of multiply by 7? Divide by 7. And there's your answer. So let's go over to the other example, and let's do it real quick. Okay, so if we look at this one, we don't see a common factor. However, let's take this right here. What will go into 3x and 18? Well, 3 will. So this now becomes negative 8x times x plus 6 plus 3 times x plus 6. So now I have this common factor x plus 6, so I'll bring that out. And then I group together what was out in front of those, negative 8x plus 3. So now I can find my zeros. So what makes that 0? X equals negative 6. What makes that 0? Remember, I'm going to do this using a shortcut. Take the opposite of this, which would be negative 3, and then what do? I divide by this since that's multiply. So if I divide by negative 8, I end up with this, and then you can change it to a positive. So here we have the real world problems. Okay, what change? It's basically just the aspect of knowing domain because it is a real world. So here we have an example of the height of a golf ball after it has been hit from the top of the hill can be modeled with this equation, where h is height and t is time. How long is the ball in the air? Okay, so there's a point when you think about a golf ball, it's on the ground, it's hit in the air, and then it comes back on the ground. This amount of time, it's on the ground twice. That height is 0. So what it's asking us for is, when is our function or equation equal to 0? Well, if we look at it, here it would be -1, and here it would be, again, what's the opposite of subtract 4? You add 4. What's the opposite of multiply by 2? You divide by 2. So what I get t is 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Now, what is t? Remember back up here, t was in seconds. Well, this answer does not make sense. You can't have a negative time. So how long was the golf ball in the air? That's the only one that makes sense, and you do need to put your units 2 seconds.